what do you think the president has been up to over these last 72 hours? I mean, you know, the White House press secretary told me yesterday they still have no evidence, no proof of any of this. What is going on here?
Donald Trump believes a lot of things that aren't true. I think that has been abundantly clear since he began this campaign. And he is rather impervious to evidence about whether or not they are true. And the issue isn't whether his suspicion turns out to be true in the end. The issue is that he says things that he has no evidence for. It reminds me very much of, you know, the illegal voters that he spent so much time talking about immediately after the inauguration. And you had Sean Spicer go out there with sort of, I think, commendable transparency and say, this is a thing the president believes.
Yeah.
It may or may not be true, but this is a thing the president believes.
Ron, are we on the dark side of the moon here? Why?
Look, I mean, there will come a point where there always comes a point where a president will need not only the country but the world to believe what they are saying. I mean, there will come a moment in your presidency, and
like selling the replacement for the Affordable Care Act,
for example,
which we'll tackle later.
Maybe something bigger on national security, on the national security side, although that is certainly very big on the domestic side. And you by systematically over and again saying things that you can't support, or certainly going out before you have any evidence to support what you're saying, you are devaluing that coin. I mean, that is just simply, and look, in this particular case, I mean, the fundamental misconception here is President Obama could not unilaterally order the wiretapping of anyone in the Trump orbit. If there was a wiretap authorized, it was because a court, a FISA court presumably, was convinced there was enough evidence to justify that. So being right is not necessarily better for Donald Trump here than being wrong.
And Nia, let me just pause for a second here, because there were a lot of striking reactions to all this up on Capitol Hill. I think one of the most striking responses was from Devin Nunes, who is the chair of the House Intelligence Committee, Republican, who described the president as a neophyte in politics. Let's play that, and then I'll get you to comment on the other side.
President is a neophyte to politics. He's been doing this a little over a year. And I think a lot of the things that he says, you guys sometimes take literally. Sometimes he doesn't have 27 lawyers and staff looking at what he does, which is, I think, at times refreshing, and at times can also lead us to have to be sitting at a press conference like this answering questions that you guys are asking.
Nia, is that a good excuse that the president is new at this?
No, I mean, it's pretty terrible. I mean, this idea that he doesn't have 27 lawyers, apparently they've just hired a bunch of lawyers at the White House, and he could have 27 lawyers reviewing what he does. He could talk to folks and figure out what the deal is in terms of this wiretap. One of the things that's interesting in terms of what the White House is doing here is they're essentially saying that what the president says shouldn't be taken at face value, that it needs the credibility of Congress, the credibility of Republicans on the Hill to back up what he says, which is a sort of an interesting place for the White House to be. Yeah. That what he says needs more backing. And you saw Sean Spicer sort of dance around the press conference yesterday, and you imagine he's going to be doing this for a while. I guess we don't know how long the questioning is going to last. I think Sean Spicer is hoping, as you said yesterday, that this would be Groundhog Day every day, and people would get sick of it, and maybe people wouldn't ask about it. But with the drip of all of this stuff going on with Russia, you imagine it'll keep coming up.
Don't overlook the fact that this really indicates how much President Trump relies on the conservative media for his information. When we asked on the very first morning after he tweeted these tweets, where is he getting this from? An aide pointed us to the Breitbart article and said, did you read this? And so they haven't really admitted for sure that that's the only place where he's getting this intel from, but that's what we've been led to believe.
They're not even sure where he's getting it from. They're saying, well, Breitbart talked about it.
We
Mark
believe,
Levin talked about it.
We believe that Trump watched either Levin or read the Breitbart piece, and he truly believed that he had enough faith in that he was willing to spout off on Twitter immediately.
And just think about how different this is than the usual process. I mean, we've all covered other White Houses. The first White House I covered was Ronald Reagan. And you think about the process that goes through the assembly line, the assembly belt that has to progress before a word comes out of the president's mouth. All the people who are usually involved in kind of developing the policy and making sure all of the nuance are right, particularly on foreign policy. And then you have Donald Trump, who seemingly circumvents all of that. When he misspells tap in a tweet, or when he misspells unprecedented in a tweet about China, you can assume there are not a lot of other people who are kind of proofreading that and kind of fact-checking it. And so you have just this incredible process, as Nia said, in which they're almost beginning to treat it as though it is dissociated from the actual policy making. Okay, that's just something that he's saying. But this is extraordinarily different, and the reason it's extraordinarily different is because what presidents say matter.
Yeah, and I have been told, by the way, that sometimes the president dictates those tweets to a staffer who will then put it out. So you have to wonder, is the spell check working on the iPhone or Android or whatever device? Let's play a little bit of what Adam Schiff said yesterday, because he had an interesting comment on all of this, and it tees up a question I want to ask. Let's play that.
The president has said that this is a scandal that dwarfs Watergate, that his predecessor engaged in an illegal wiretap of his campaign. That is one potential scandal. The alternative is a different kind of a scandal, and that is a scandal of a sitting U.S. president alleging that his predecessor engaged in the most unscrupulous and unlawful conduct. That is also a scandal if those allegations prove to be false.
And Congressman Schiff also said that he welcomed this investigation. He was basically saying, okay, let's bring it on. And Molly, one thing that I thought was interesting yesterday is that Devin Nunes said that at this upcoming hearing he plans to hold on all of this, the former DNI, James Clapper, will be there. The former CIA director, John Brennan, will be there. The FBI director, Jim Comey, might be there. Even Sally Yates, who stepped down from being the acting attorney general, may be there. It strikes me as this might be something Democrats are really going to be looking forward to in a couple of weeks here.
Well, sure, but I mean, we have.
I mean, the White House says, well, yeah, let the intelligence committees investigate this. Let's have them look into this. We don't want to reveal our sources and methods if we bring in a special prosecutor. But do they really want public hearings where all of these officials come in and say, no, Mr. President, there was no wiretap at Trump Tower?
It's potentially very embarrassing for the White House. You know, there were reports over the weekend about clashes between the FBI and the Justice Department, and we have seen quite a lot of willingness to speak independently, whether through leaks or even publicly, on the part of top intelligence officials, top national security officials. They've been pretty clear when they have disagreed with the president, and that it's been a lot.
Yeah.
So a hearing like this could potentially expose a lot.
And I want to pivot very quickly because of this WikiLeaks dump that revealed all these sources and methods that the CIA apparently is using, where they can I guess they can make their way into your phones and spy on you, and perhaps even your self-driving cars. It seems like the sky is the limit here. Here's what the FBI director said about this earlier today, about what Americans can expect in terms of their privacy.
There is no such thing as absolute privacy in America. There is no place in America outside of judicial reach.
Nia, that doesn't give me a great feeling.
Right. Yeah. You know, I mean, in some ways he's right. I mean, he's saying that a court can compel you if there is reason to believe you know something about a crime or have committed a crime. The court can compel you to tell them things, to let them into your house. So in that way, it's right. I do think it is ironic that we find ourselves here, obviously concerned about privacy, but Americans are so willing to divulge all sorts of things about their lives on any given platform, whether it's Twitter, whether it's Snapchat, whether it's Instagram, whether it's Facebook. I mean, pictures of their kids, what they had for dinner, whatever it is. So we seem to, at this point, be willing participants at this point in terms of giving.
But Jennifer, you know, the one thing the White House has been worried about, Jennifer, is the president's security when it comes to his phone.
Right.
And so, you know, having the FBI director sort of acknowledge, like, listen, folks, your expectations of privacy may not be where you think they are.
And the White House phones are very secure. And as we all know, as reporters, their phones cannot receive or send text messages. But we also know that the president still has access to his old phone. He's able to use and call and tweet on and text on his old phone.
Well, and the through line here, just to connect this to the discussion we're having about potential wiretapping of Trump Tower, this is why people believe Donald Trump when they say things like that. Because there is a feeling that surveillance is everywhere, that they're in your phone, they're in your house, they can hear everything you say, they can read all of your text messages. So when Trump says my phone's being tapped in Trump Tower, I think there's a lot of people who believe that because they feel like there is nothing that our intelligence agencies
I got to take a quick break.